Welcome everybody to What We Watched. Official week 1. Last week was the intro.
Episode last week was like episode 0.5. This is officially episode 1.
Woo!
Yeah.
Who's ready?
I am. Me.
Okay. So this week we watched Little Women 2019, and I'm just gonna read a little description and tell you a little bit about this movie before we start talking into what our thoughts and feelings were about it. So it on IMDb, it's rated a 7.8 out of 10, 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, critic score, 4.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So some pretty high scoring there. And then I'm just going to read a short description for those who maybe didn't watch the movie or have watched it in the past and just want to be reminded. The 2019 adaptation of Little Women, directed by Greta Gerwig, is based on Louisa May Alcott's classic semi-autobiographical novel. The film follows the lives of the 4 March sisters, Jo, Meg, Beth, and Amy, growing up in post-Civil War America as they navigate love, ambition, family, and societal expectations. The story is told in a nonlinear format, interweaving past and present. Jo, an aspiring writer, struggles with balancing her independence and desire for creative fulfillment with societal pressures to marry. Meg dreams of a family life. Beth is shy and musically gifted, but suffers from illness. And Amy, the youngest, is ambitious and artistic, determined to marry well to support her family. Their relationships with family friend Lori, their neighbor Mr. Lawrence, and Jo's eventual mentor and love interest, Frederic Baer, are central to the plot. The film explores themes of sisterhood and self-determination, offering a fresh perspective on timeless struggles faced by women. Gerwig's direction, combined with performances of Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, Emma Watson, and Eliza Scanlen, received widespread acclaim, as did the film's cinematography, score, and costume design.
Yeah.
There it is.
Apt
Shall we
description.
Talk?
Yep.
Let's do it.
If you'll remember from last week, dear viewer or listener, we will be rating and talking about movies based on 5 categories. Is it 5? No. Yeah, 5.
6?
6. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6 categories, which are plot, character, aesthetic, writing, acting, and music.
Love it.
So, to get into it, plot. I will turn it over to Natalie because this is her favorite movie. So what do you think?
This is my favorite movie,
plot?
guys. I will say, okay, so for our rating system, this week we just did it out of 10 or gave it a grade. So I will tell you to start, I gave it a 9.5 and an A, A minus, in there. Well, it was interesting to watch this movie thinking about how I would talk about it on this podcast. A little different perspective. I honestly feel like it's just your typical coming of age. Nothing really happens except for Beth dying. Spoiler alert. It's not. There's not a ton there. It's just girls living life and making decisions about their futures. And so I feel like for what it is, it's pretty good. Not anything crazy goes on with it, but I don't know. I like it. I think it's interesting to watch. So I gave it a solid 9.5. What did you think,
Nice.
Garrett? I want to hear your thoughts.
Yes. So I will just say very quickly overall, which we'll say our overall thoughts towards the end, but just to satiate all the concerns out there, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was fantastic. And I have to say that but as a preface before what I give for my plot rating, because I would give the plot probably an 8 out of 10 or a B. Because like you were saying, there really isn't much to the plot other than you're just kind of watching this family. And that's kind of the point. But it's more like you were saying, it's more of a coming of age, slice of life type movie. And generally those types of movies, for example, Lady Bird, also by Greta Gerwig, kind of similar vibes where when I imagine a good plot, it's something you can sum up in 2 sentences. The Fellowship needs to take the ring to Mount Doom, or Harry Potter needs to discover this hidden mystery or whatever. And there isn't really anything, you can't really do that with Little Women.
No, you can't.
Like the
That's why
broad,
the description was that long.
yeah, exactly. Like you would have to make it so broad where it's just like watch these little women live. So
Yeah.
because of that, I think the plot like, and it's not to say like it was bad by any means, obviously, but
An 8 is a great score, Garrett.
yes, I know. I'm just worried people will come at me. But this is definitely more of a character-driven type movie, which is like I said last week, that's like my favorite thing. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I gave a moving on to character a little
Love
fast
it.
here, but
Yeah.
I gave character a 9 out of 10 or an A score because,
Yeah.
like I said, very character-driven movie. Like that's pretty much the sole point of you're just watching these people, these sisters, this family over the course of like 7-ish years, 10 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and you really get to know like pretty much all of the core 4 sisters and
Mm-hmm.
Lori. And it's his grandpa or is his dad, Mr. Lawrence?
Mr. Lawrence is his grandpa.
Yeah. And like um Miss Marsh and like just everybody.
Yeah.
So I'll say a little bit more on character in a second, but I want to hear your thoughts on character.
Yes. Obviously, this is my favorite movie, so everything's going to be pretty high on my scoring.
Mm-hmm.
I gave character a 10 because I think, like you said, this is a very
Mm-hmm.
character-driven story. If you don't love the characters, this movie is nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love the dynamics between the sisters. I feel like maybe we should just talk about like a little bit of each of the, I don't know, how
Yeah.
should we go about it? Yeah. Well, I'll start with Joe because
Mm-hmm.
she's kind of our main character. Louisa May Alcott is kind of like, that's kind of who she based her off of herself.
Mm-hmm.
Very like ahead of the times, very like feminist, wants to do her own thing,
Mm-hmm.
wants to be a writer. I think Joe is pretty relatable as that she's kind of an outsider, but that she loves her family. She wants to provide for her family. And yeah, I love Joe. Think she's great.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of her?
I really, really like Jo. I think she's pretty like easy to kind of like root for and like
Mm-hmm.
very like there's things that she does that are frustrating. Like, no, like why can't you just be with Lori? But like you also understand, like, no, like obviously like she has her own mind made up on these things. But something I really liked about Jo, and because you mentioned like she has like a very like she's obviously like way ahead of the times at that time, very feminist in that sort of regard in terms of like marriage and stuff like that. And I really liked how they pointed out like they're not saying that like Joe's mindset is wrong by any means, but in her big monologue where she goes on about like how women are like kind of they should be respected more than they are at that time and stuff. And I really like at the very end she's like, but I'm so lonely.
Yeah.
And it's just so like dang, like it just shows you like she's not wrong in anything that she's really doing, but it's also kind of leading just because of the culture and society that she's in. It's led her to like kind of close herself off and, ostracize herself from that type of culture because she's like, nah, I don't want to be a part of it. But it's led
Mm-hmm.
to that like just loneliness, which I found very compelling, very relatable, very
Mm-hmm.
interesting, like putting herself through that, which she really doesn't need to.
Yeah.
So I really like Jo, very easy to root for.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's, yeah, it's also interesting because like she also like it's interesting between like the dynamic between the sisters because they're all so different. They all want different things in their lives.
Hmm.
Like when Joe goes to Meg and is like, "Don't get married. Like come run
Yeah.
away with me. Come be an actor. Like do your own thing." And like
Hmm.
Meg's like, "Whoa, like I want to get married. Like
Yeah.
this is what I want. Like that's great that you're doing that." I love that they all support each other, but like that they're all
Hmm.
kind of like, "Wait, but do you want to come with me and do my thing?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Joe's very interesting. That monologue that you were talking about, I actually put later that we can also talk about too because I
Hmm.
love that scene. But
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. We
Um,
love Joe.
I think my favorite characters, I mean, we'll just go through the sisters, I guess, but
Yeah.
I think just to throw this out there, I think my favorite characters are probably Mr. Lawrence, Beth, Amy, and Joe. I think them
Mhm.
four
Yeah.
are very, very good. But let's go on to, I know we're kind of messing up the order here, but
No,
Meg.
I
What'd
love
you
it.
think of Meg?
Meg, Meg is interesting because I low-key feel like she's the most similar to me, but I don't like her the most.
Let's
So
unpack
don't
that,
know
Natalie.
what
Let's
that means
unpack
about
that.
myself, but
Yeah.
like she's pretty just like she wants to be married, she wants to have a family.
Mm.
She knew it for a long time. She wants to follow the rules. She tells Joe to
Mm.
follow the rules, like she wants to fit in, like when she goes to the party thing and she's like, and then Lori's like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't you. Like, I think that she's pretty interesting. I don't think she's the most interesting of the sisters, but I mean, I like her. I think she's very typical oldest sister.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think there's really like not that much to be said about Meg, kind of
Yeah,
how you're
exactly.
saying.
Yeah.
It's like she's just kind of like the typical older sister, has her mind made up, does what she wants to do. Like,
Knows what she wants in life.
yeah,
Wants to be the
exactly.
example, wants to show
Yeah.
people like, yeah, totally.
And her, like, we'll talk, I think I talk about this a little bit later too, but her relationship with her husband is really good too. I really like their
Yeah.
family. But what about Beth?
Beth. Poor little Beth. I feel so bad
Beth's
for her.
Beth is low key my goat of this movie.
Yeah,
She,
she's so sweet.
Mhm.
Tell me what you think about Beth since you love her.
I'll talk about Beth and Mr. Lawrence in the same
Their
at the same
relationship is
time
so tender.
because that probably was my favorite part of the movie was their relationship. Because going into this movie, I thought like my favorite part was going to be like Laurie and his pining after Joe and pining after Amy, and because when I first saw those scenes where he like tried to propose to Joe and she denied him like years ago, I was like, this is just my life. Like this is just my experience with women. But as I've grown up and like matured, quote unquote, a little bit more, like I still love Laura, I still love those scenes, but I found the more compelling part to be with Beth and Mr. Lawrence. Just his whole like going through his process of mourning of losing his daughter, but then Beth is able to help him like open up more. And I put this in my notes. I think potentially my favorite scene, my two favorite scenes are when Beth goes over to his house for the first time to play the piano, and then he just sits by the stairs like away from her
And
so she can't
listens.
see, but he just
Yeah.
listens and kind of starts crying. Like
Uh-huh.
that got me, man. I was like, dang. And then the
It
part
hits you in the
where
feels.
exactly. And then the part where Mr. Lawrence gives Beth the piano and she's just so like overcome and goes to his house and like thanks him for it. And
Yeah.
he's like, you just remind me so much of her. Like that was just
So
so
sweet.
good, so compelling. And like
I know.
she's just such a good person
I
and
know.
she's the best of them.
She's the most pure.
Yeah,
She's just so
exactly.
cute. I know, it's so cute. I actually, this time when I was watching it, that scene when he gives her the piano stuck out to me too. I don't know why.
Mhm,
Because it usually is, it's not like really, that's not my favorite part of the story. We can kind of talk about
mhm.
that later. But like when they're all like fawning over the piano and like
Yeah,
Amy's like, oh my gosh, look at the gold trim. Like it's so beautiful. And she's just like, she literally like steps back. She's like, what? Like just
yeah,
so grateful. And then like literally walks right over. And it's so
mhm,
sweet. I think it's so cute.
yeah. And
She's
it's
the
very,
best. Very
it,
sad what
yeah,
happens
exactly.
to
Like
her.
poor Beth. She's like, I mean, it's like as Amy says, she's like the best of them. She's like
Totally. Yeah.
the most like their mom too, for
Totally. Yeah.
sure.
Just very quiet. Like she wants to keep the peace.
Mhm,
She's just so cute. And I also think it's interesting when they're all talking about what they want, like in life,
mhm.
and they're talking about their talents and stuff. And like Amy's like, I want to be the most famous painter in the world. And she's like,
Yeah,
and they're all like, well, what about you, Beth? Like, what about your music? And she's like, I just like to play it for you guys. Like,
yeah.
she's so cute.
She's just so
I love it.
humble.
So
Yeah.
humble. Yeah. Very
Um,
tender.
and lastly of the sisters, Amy. Oh,
Yes.
Amy.
I have to say, I love Amy.
Mhm.
Love her.
She,
I
I was gonna say this later, but then just because we're talking about her, for those who don't know, in the flashback scenes, Amy is like 13 or 12 years old, and Florence Pugh was 22 when she played this 12-year-old girl, and that like it took me a sec to get used to that. But that
Mhm.
being said, Florence Pugh is freaking hilarious
Mhm.
as little girl Amy. Like I
Mhm.
thought Beth was the youngest sister for a while,
I
and then I
I did
looked
too
it
when I
up.
first saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I looked it up and I was like, wait, Amy is supposed to be 12 years old and
I
Florence
know,
Pugh's
it's
like
so weird.
22? Yeah.
This isn't the first adaptation, by the way. Like, there's been
Yeah.
several adaptations, and I can't. What is her name? She's in the original Spider-Man men movies with
Oh,
Tobey
yeah,
Maguire.
yeah.
What's her name?
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, she plays
Mhm.
Amy as young Amy in the
Uh,
one with Christian Bale.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so but they
Yeah.
use the same actor, which is a little weird because it's like, okay, she's supposed to be like a kid, but anyways, yeah, she is hilarious.
Mhm. It was that scene in the school when she's at school and like
Hmm.
all these other children are like normal 12-year-old looking girls. And I was like, wait, why is she there? Like, what? But yes, talking about the character, Amy's great. She's hilarious. She's driven. Her
Hmm.
dynamic with Joe and their relationship of loving each other, but also being jealous of each other
Hmm.
is really compelling, very
Hmm.
interesting. Yeah, she's
As
great.
a writer, how did you feel when she burned Joe's
Uh,
Joe's writing?
I wanted to punch Amy in the face, dude. Amy, that was something as I was like looking up stuff after I watched it. I learned that like a lot of people like before this movie kind of hated Amy. She
Hmm.
was just like the brat character, which she still is
Yeah.
here. But Florence Pugh makes her, and Greta Gerwig obviously make her a lot more compelling than I think she is in other adaptations and maybe even in the book.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I haven't read the book, but yeah, I
Yeah.
thought Amy
No,
was
I
great.
haven't seen the other adaptations, and I also haven't read the book.
Mhm.
But um Amy and Laurie are actually part of the reason why I watched this movie because it wasn't the scene on the hill where Laurie's like confessing his love for Joe that I saw
Mhm.
like before I saw the movie. It was actually the scene where Laurie tells Amy not to marry what's his
Yeah.
face. That
Mhm.
was the scene that I had seen, and I was like, "What is this movie? Like, I need to watch it."
Mhm.
And so I already had like a pretty like strong connection to her in that way because I was
Mhm.
like, I felt that's one of the scenes that I felt like it was like
Yeah.
now you want me? Like, I've been second to Joe my whole life. What is going
Yeah.
now that she doesn't want you? Like,
Mhm.
um, I love that part where she's like, "Wait, what? Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I
love
actually have
Amy.
that. I have that in my notes on the writing section, parts of that
Yeah,
scene. So
yeah,
we'll talk
that's a
about
good.
that. We'll talk
We'll
about
talk
that.
about that more.
Yeah.
I also love
Yeah.
her monologue when she's talking about like marriage as an economical proposition. Like, she's
Yeah.
like, "It might not be for you, but it is for me. Like, I have to think about these
Mhm.
things." So
Mhm.
yeah, I love Amy. I also love Florence Pugh, so that might be part of
Yeah.
it why I'm biased. So
We love Flo. We love
we
Flo on
love
this
Flo, our
podcast. Yeah.
girl. Okay, should we
But
move
yeah,
on?
yes, moving on to writing.
Okay, love it.
So what did you think about the writing? Because I could probably go off on this for a while. So let's start out with your thoughts.
It gave the writing um a 9.5. I didn't
Mhm.
give it a 10. I gave it a 9.5. I think most of it is great. I will say one of the reasons why is because of Amy, because of the whole like age gap thing. It's a little confusing if you
Mhm.
don't know what's actually going on. I think Flo does a good job of doing what she can with it. So like props to her as an actor, being very like immature at the beginning and then having to like take it and be like a mature like
Mhm.
her progress is pretty interesting because her dynamic is so different throughout. I think some of the like obviously some of the most beautiful scenes ever are in like
Yeah.
the writing, all the monologues. Like I love Timothy's Laurie's big um like
Confession of
confession
love
of
and stuff.
love
Yeah.
is so beautiful. I think it's the writing is so natural. Obviously, I think some of it is the acting. I think all the actors have a
Mhm.
great dynamic. Again, the attic scene where she's like, I care more to be loved. I'm so lonely. Like that
Mhm.
part is amazing. But yeah, I think also, um, then obviously, like, known a lot about this movie and like looked at a lot of things. And the script is so interesting because, like, it was written for, like, the girls to speak over each other and stuff,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I think that part is really cool, it's, like, very natural. If you have siblings, you know that that's a lot of how it is, it's just, like, a lot of yelling over each other, and so I think
Mhm.
the writing of that was cool. I also really like the way that they did the time jumps.
Yeah.
In previous adaptations, they've done them chronologically, but I think it makes the story a lot more interesting to be able to, like, see it back and
Mhm.
forth. And then I also wrote though one of the reasons why I brought it down from to a 9.5 was I towards the end of the movie when they're doing like the letters and they're like shooting that like they're doing the
Yeah.
writing where they're like talking to the
Talking at the
camera.
camera.
It's
Yeah.
That's a little weird, not my favorite,
Yeah.
but for the most part I think the writing is beautiful. I think it's good.
Yeah. I would probably agree on like the whole like how they chose to do the letter thing. But I would put that more like, I kind of thought of that in the aesthetic category.
Okay.
Just because that seems like an editing
More like a
choice of like,
directorial.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later. I gave the writing, I was going back and forth between this and like 9.5, but I give the writing a 10 out of 10 score. I thought it was really, really, really good. It's like kind of what you said already. It's very like, it flows very nicely together. And obviously that's partially due to the acting, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But it's very compelling, very flowing. There's tons of like good lines, like what you said, the I care more to be loved. I'd rather be like loved than like love, that type of stuff. And then what you said, the part where Florence Pugh goes on, or Amy goes on her monologue after Laurie tells her like, you shouldn't marry him, you should marry me. And she says
Mm-hmm.
like, I've been second to Joe my whole life and everything. I'm not going to be the person you settle for just because you can't have her. And then this line is so good. I won't do it, not when I've spent my entire life loving you. It's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
just like she's not going to accept him, or not going to accept his marriage proposal, even though she's loved him her whole life. Like, those two things like obviously contradict each other, but it's so like, that's the point. It's like, that's how heartbreaking it is. It's like,
Yeah.
even though she loves him, she doesn't want to be second. She wants to be
Yeah.
like his
She
first
wants to be,
choice.
yeah, totally. I also love talking more about like Amy and Laurie's dynamic when he goes to like the ball and she says something about like, I would be respected if I wasn't loved, or something like it, like
Yeah.
something along those lines. I remember when I first like watched it, I was like, ooh, bird, like
Yeah.
so crazy.
Mhm.
Because obviously at that point when you're watching it for the first time, you don't know the whole like Laurie Joe dynamic, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's a burn.
It's like, just like, there really wasn't a line in here that I was like, ugh, that was weird, or anything like that. Like, obviously there's like the way they chose to have people read letters directly to the camera,
Yeah.
but like, the lines that they were reading were really good. It was just like
Yeah,
the choice to do it like that was
that's
weird.
fair. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was super compelling. Like you said, the way it cut back and forth was very interesting. How it like mirrored past and present.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically when Beth died, which we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about that. At least I'll talk about that a little bit later. And yeah, I think we kind of, everything you said, I would probably agree with. Like, there really isn't any writing choice that I would disagree with. I think it's all very nice, flows very nicely together. The way Greta Gerwig adapted it was probably one of the best adaptations of a book, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I also think that it's so interesting because it was what was the year of that book came out. I'm like, I need to look it up really quick. But like they took some of the dialogue straight from that book and they made it like sound modern. Like it's not like you're looking it the way that it was acted, like it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm watching like an old-timey like I
Mhm.
don't understand what they're saying, Like it didn't feel like Shakespearean in any way that you're like, I can't, what are they saying?
Yeah.
Which I think is really awesome. Let me look at when it was written. It's literally written in 1868.
Yeah.
So to take that and like make it flow and all that stuff, I think is incredible, and she did a great
Mhm.
job.
Testament to her writing ability for sure.
Yeah.
Like, Greta Gerwig's dialogue is like, she's like some of the best in the business right now in terms of
Yeah.
dialogue. Like, it just sounds so normal, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Um, but moving on to, actually, wait, I forgot to talk about this because I put this in the writing category as well. The themes.
Mm.
Yeah, I really like the themes of this. Obviously, like the themes of like family and marriage and stuff were very compelling. And I specifically found the exploration of marriage very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people, like, just discourse I've seen online and stuff, has been like, oh, Greta Gerwig saying like marriage is terrible. And it's like, did you watch the movie? Because
It's
like
like no.
that's like not the point at all. Because like you said in that one part when, at least the way I interpreted it, that one part when um Amy's saying like marriage is like what she's called it. She called it
Economical.
economic proposition.
Yeah.
Um, and that's like, I have to worry about like my kids will be my husband's kids, like my property
Yeah.
will be my husband's property, my money is my husband's money, and all that stuff. And she's like, I have to marry rich. I have to do all these things. And like, obviously their aunt also says the same things of like, you have to marry rich. You have to do this. But I find that very interesting because like every couple we see in the movie is kind of the opposite of that. It's like, oh no, Meg and her husband are like very poor, but they're very loving. They love each other a lot. Like it's not just that they got married as an economical proposition. It was because they really love each other. Same with the Marsh parents. Like they I keep calling them Marshes, the March parents. Like they like really love each other, even though they're poor. And like every couple, Amy and Laurie and stuff, they didn't get married because they had to. They got married because they chose to and really love each other. And so I think people who think that this movie is like anti-marriage and anti-love are just dumb, because it's like, did you watch the movie? That's like the opposite of what it's trying to say.
Well, and then she ends up marrying for love anyways because she loves Laurie. So it's like she thinks everything that and it's also like, again, every sister is different. Like they're not bagging on marriage at all. Like that's literally all, like it's just the different ways that like marriage is viewed.
It's very interesting. I really liked how Greta handled it. It was very cool. It could have been done very poorly, and she did it very, very expertly.
Shout out to Greta. Love you.
Shout out Greta. Next one, acting.
Yes.
What did you give the acting?
You start.
Okay. I give the acting a 9.5 out of 10. I think everyone is pretty much on their A game. Like the chemistry, like you were saying, from everybody is like immaculate. Like they just feel like a family. Like every scene they're in, it's like, this just feels like you put a camera in like my family dinners. Like this is just like, this is just a family. They're like the chemistry between obviously the sisters, like we were saying, but also like the couples was really good. The monologues are just expertly delivered. Like I think the reason the writing is so good is also because of the acting.
Totally,
the acting is that good behind it. But like I said, Florence Pugh plays a 12-year-old, which is kind of weird. But like she does it really good, so I'm not really docking points from that. The main reason why I didn't give it a 10 is I do think a couple people are miscast. Like not terribly so. Like I think everybody still does a good job. But like, I'm sorry, I love this man so much. But Bob Odenkirk was like, he just doesn't really fit in the rest of the movie.
I fully agree. Yeah.
Like, it's like probably because I've seen him in like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad and all these other things. So every time I see him, I'm just like, oh, it's Saul Goodman. But like, there's just like, and he's still great in it for the time that he's in it. But it's just like, he doesn't really fit with everybody else. And then, well, I still love her character, still adore the actress. She was like my first crush. Emma Watson, I think, might have been cast, like somebody else could have done Meg a little bit better.
Totally.
Mainly because her accent slips in and out like all the time. And it's really funny. Like there's times where like the entire movie, you can watch her and be like, I can tell this is a British person trying to put on an English accent. And it's hard.
I fully agree.
It's hard because she's up against like Saoirse Ronan, who has a very thick Irish accent in real life. And you can't see any of that.
And you can't even tell. You wouldn't even know.
Exactly. So still, like Emma Watson, Bob Odenkirk do great in the roles that they're given, but I think they could have been cast a little bit better. Also, I do have to shout out Mr. Lawrence, one of my favorite characters, played by Mr. Texas T from the Muppets movie, Tex Richmond. But just had to throw that in there. Yeah.
Love you.
Anyways, what did you think?
I actually gave it a 9.5 for the exact same reasons. I like literally, I think for the most part, the acting's incredible. The dynamics between the characters are amazing. I think they're all very compelling to watch, very interesting. They all did their characters well. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Emma Watson was anything special in this movie. But and her accent again slips in and out. Somebody could definitely have done it just as well or better than her for sure. But yeah, for the most part, I fully agree with everything you said though. So hey, look at us.
Yeah, look at us agreeing. That won't happen all the time. But yeah, I have to say one last thing on this because I feel bad because I went off on him for a second. Bob Odenkirk, one of my favorite actors working today. I love the guy. He just wasn't Mr. Marsh in my opinion. But moving on to the next category. Do you have anything else to say on acting?
I feel like we maybe just need to have a section just about, I mean, we've mentioned it several times, but maybe just to like get it out of the way. Just the love confession, Timmy's monologue. What was
Yeah.
your thoughts now that you've
Yes.
seen it within the context of the film?
Yeah. Now that I've seen it within the context of the movie, like I said, when I first saw that like years ago on like film Instagram posts, I was like, this man is just living like my reality. Like this is just my representation. But like now I feel I still like relate to that. I still 100% like feel for him a lot, feel for Joe a lot in that scene. And it's funny because like I'm probably even more down bad now than I was when I first encountered that scene. But yeah, I think in terms of acting, that scene is probably the best in the movie potentially. Um, just you feel like when I first saw that scene, I was like, man, Joe, you suck. Why don't you just like love this guy? Like you clearly have feelings for him. But now that I watch the movie and like understand it more, I totally see her side of it as well. Of
Yeah.
like I don't want to love you. I don't want to like go into this relationship because I know you're gonna love me more than I'm gonna love you. And like she's just as wrong, but just as right as Lori is in the situation.
Yeah. No, I literally love that scene so much. It's so good. Just Timmy just going, but I
Going
thought you'd love
crazy.
me.
Yeah.
I thought you'd love me. Like,
Mhm.
I thought at some point, like, this would work out. Like,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking, but I will say, for all you listeners out there, I am an Amy Laurie defender. I
I
think
would
that they
agree.
are the
Mhm.
people that should have ended up together, as is Joe and Frederic.
Mhm.
Even though he's not that much of an interesting character, I do think that he is exactly what Joe needs. She needs somebody
Mhm.
that's gonna push her a little bit, gonna challenge her a little bit, and
Mhm.
also just like, I feel like they fit, even though, she was forced into
Yeah.
having some sort of relationship, give or
Yeah.
take.
That part in the Joe Lori monologue when she's like explaining all the reasons why like their marriage wouldn't work, and
hmm
he's just like staring at her. He's like, "I love you, Joe.
I
I love you,
know.
Joe." Just like trying to shut her up. Like it's like so sad and so
It's
good.
so sad.
Um, Also the scene like that you just mentioned of Frederic, how he's like pushing her, the part where he's reading her work and she's so excited and he's just like, I don't think it's good.
I don't
Like,
like it.
yeah, I don't
Has
like any
nobody
of
ever
these.
talked to you like this?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
as a writer, that scene that might have been this time around the most relatable scene of the
Yeah.
movie. Cause like that's what I'm literally going through right now of like
Yeah.
giving people what I've written and then like I need somebody to be like, this isn't good. Like you can do
Yeah.
better. Like I know you can. And the part where she's like, I'm no Shakespeare, and he's like, good, because we've already had
Good. We
him.
already got that. Yeah.
Like that's so good. That was such a
Yeah.
good line.
I'm
But yeah,
glad you
I love
appreciate
Frederic.
Frederic.
Do you think so? Do you think they ended up married at the end? Because it's kind of like ambiguous as if they did or not.
I think that yes.
Hmm.
Um yeah.
I
I
would
think that
agree.
they're the people that need to be together. Because
Yeah.
I think also like I think Joe realizes that she needs somebody to fulfill her to fill that need of loneliness, especially
Hmm.
at that time. I mean, I think that yeah, it would be really cool if Joe like went off and did her own thing and like never got married and whatever. But I think at that time that's not realistic. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole point, right? Like it's like she's trying to do her thing and she can't really make it work. So like
Yeah.
but she found somebody. Like she found somebody that works and that
Yeah.
fits. And yeah, in the other adaptations, he's like an old creepy man, so I'm glad that
Really?
he's not from my understanding. So I'm glad.
No.
I think what Greta Gerwig did with every part of this movie was so good. And I think
Hmm.
with Frederic, she did a great job too.
Yeah.
So,
Making him a fun Frenchman rather than a creepy
yeah.
old man.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but moving on to aesthetic, as in like the cinematography and editing and stuff. What are your thoughts?
I just did a 10 because I think that this film is beautiful. I love
Hmm.
especially watching it, like I said, with more of a critical mind. I was like, I just love it. I do think that like if you were to like swap the whole letter thing, it would flip my grades for writing versus aesthetic.
Hmm.
Everything kind of goes hand in hand, but like for aesthetic, I love I love the cool, like the color grading, the warm versus cool to show like the past and the present.
Yeah.
um I think there's a beautiful variety in shots and perspectives, and like I love the wide shots
Mhm.
Like one that stands out that just off the top of my head when Amy turns down the proposal and like it's like these big trees and it's just the music that you're hearing and you can
Mhm.
tell that she said no and like all that stuff. So good.
Mhm.
I also think the parallels between like Beth being like sick the first
Yeah.
time versus the second time and then when she dies, like how beautifully they paralleled and like if you watch them side by side, like they
Mhm.
line up perfectly.
Yeah. That part where it, like exactly what you said, where it's showing like when Beth got better in the past and then it cuts and does the exact same thing, but Beth didn't get better. Like
Uh-huh.
Joe going down the stairs and seeing her mom in the same chair and turns around the exact same way. Like that was like the best edit or aesthetic part of the movie, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, my thoughts, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I
Love it.
think, like you were saying, editing was great, cinematography was great. The reason it's not a 10 is like obviously the cinematography is fantastic, but I don't think there was like necessarily a shot that I was like, it was all beautiful, but there wasn't a shot where I was like, I really love and connect with that a lot.
Yeah.
Like there isn't, this is kind of how I view, I need to probably change my mindset on it, but this is kind of how I view like good cinematography. It's like if I would have that as like my desktop or my screensaver,
Mm.
like there just wasn't really a shot like that in here. Besides like, I think Joe and Beth at the beach, the
I was just
cinematography
gonna
there,
say that. I was literally,
so
Garrett,
good.
I was literally
Yeah.
gonna say, wait, but the beach,
Yeah.
that's
Those
gorgeous.
those scenes are like, in my opinion, the best shots of the movie. But yeah, there just wasn't like too much of I don't know, there wasn't too many shots where I was like, dang, wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. It was just like it was all
that's
really
fair.
good. It was all super solid. Um and
Oh,
then
9
like
is
we were
great. I love
saying,
it.
yeah, and like we were saying, the choice to have the people read the letters directly to the camera,
Eh,
not my
not the
favorite.
move. Not
Yeah,
the move.
so doesn't take me out necessarily, but it's like, why are you talking at me right now? Why are you
No,
talking
it's like
directly to me?
it's like
Yeah,
that's unnecessary. And
yeah,
and the fact that it's not like throughout the movie, it just kind of like pops out
uh-huh,
out of nowhere and you're like, "Whoa. Why are you
yeah,
talking at me?"
exactly. It's like what the
Yeah.
first time it happens at the very beginning with Frederick, I was like, was that like supposed like,
You're like, "Where
yeah,
did that come
what? Yeah,
from?"
is he in the room with
And then
her?
it
Like
goes
I don't,
away, and then
yeah,
it comes back at the end, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, aesthetically, very great, very
love
good.
it.
All
Okay.
right, final category, music.
Music, one of my favorite categories. I will
Hmm.
say, going into the movie, like, watching it this time, I was like, "I don't think the music's gonna be that high," but while I was paying attention to it, I was like, "No, wait, this music is great."
Hmm.
I think it's so good. I also think that it, like, does a really good job of, like, telling the story, and,
Uh,
it really fits the vibe of this movie. I think at this point, having watched it as many times as I have, it is very recognizable. But yeah, I think it was good. Pretty quiet, very simple. Like it's not anything
uh,
crazy, but I think that that fits the film. So they did a great job.
uh, exactly. I'd kind of say the same thing. Like it's exactly what the movie needed.
Hmm.
Like the music like just fits very well with the story it's trying to tell, the period piece, the type of genre it is of coming of age. Like it all just makes sense. But just due to personal preference, I gave it like an 8 out of 10.
Hmm.
Still great, obviously, but it's on this first watch through, at least it wasn't really, I couldn't see myself like listening to the music outside of watching the movie. That makes
Which is
sense.
fair. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
With
kind of what my thought was, like, going into it, was I was like, I've
Mhm.
never once been like, "I need to listen to the Little Women score." But
Yeah.
now that I've seen it so many times and I watched it again, I was like, "Wait, why don't I listen to the Little Women score?"
Yeah.
So maybe it's just one of those things that grows on you because of, the connection of everything,
Yeah.
like, once you've seen it enough, it's like, "Okay, wait, it's good,"
Mhm.
you know? But I
Yeah.
think an 8 is a great score. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Was that our last one?
That was our last category. So, what are your overall thoughts and grade of Little Women?
I think everybody knows because this is my favorite film of all time, and it
Hmm.
was all part of my plan just to get everybody in my life to watch it, to make it be the first movie we watch. But I love this movie. Even though I graded it like a 9.5 in some categories, I'm just gonna give it a 10 overall. I love this movie. I would literally watch it anytime. Yeah, I think it's great. I'm so glad that you liked it.
Yeah, I really, really liked it. I gave it the score of 9 out of 10.
Heck
A
yeah.
solid A. It was
Solid A.
fantastic. Very, very good. I think I don't know like exactly when, but it's definitely a movie where I'm definitely going to be watching this in the future at some point, which is like the highest praise, honestly.
Yeah, love it. It's also a very like comforting, warm film that I feel like, even though, there's some sad parts, but there's a little Christmas in there.
Yeah,
so it's kind of
exactly.
fun to watch like leading up to the holidays.
It's a good November movie.
A great November movie. It looks like November.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think for our first film of what we watch, it was a really good one to start with.
A solid start. I'm so glad. Yeah.
Hopefully we can agree like this on all movies, but
probably
we'll see.
won't. I know. I'm like, if we just keep agreeing, is this really a fun podcast? Like, what do we? Maybe we're a lot more similar than we thought, Garrett.
Yeah, I think the next movie for the next episode, my pick, could potentially start making our opinions a little bit different. I could see you really liking this movie, but I could also see you not liking it. So, or like not loving it as much as I do. So,
what are we
drum
watching?
roll, please. Next episode, we will be watching for Garrett's first pick, The Truman Show.
Never seen it. I love that we've chose movies that like you hadn't seen that one. I haven't seen this one. Should be fun. I'm excited.
Yep. So we'll see if we agree like we did on this one. And if we do, then the next pick, I'm just going to make it super controversial, something that I probably really love and I know you're probably not going to like.
Perfect. So, I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
If we both love The Truman Show, watch out for week 4.
When we get
episode 4.
We get into like, you're going to make me watch Twilight or something.
No, literally, I'm like, time to watch some girly pop stuff.
Would be February, so
hey,
Valentine's Day, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
But yes, so next week, Truman Show, or 2 weeks from now, Truman Show. So listeners, go watch Truman Show, form your own opinions, and then come listen to us talk about it. Give us your thoughts on what you thought of this episode. Do you agree with our opinions? Is there anything you would want to add? Anything you think
we missed? Anything that you want to talk about? Go comment on our YouTube. Also, go follow our Instagram. Go follow our TikTok. Go support, share with friends. Again, we're so grateful for you guys, and we hope you like this episode.
We shall see you next time.
Yay!